So this is one on making decisions, right? So again, this stems from this study that we've done off of all of the hundreds of hours of calls that we've had. We can boil most of this down to, people have a difficult time navigating decisions. So let's just kind of tell you how to make decisions and how to think through decisions. So decisions and strategy. To not decide is to decide. What we're going to cover, separating decision from strategy, two completely different things. Making hard decisions, that is difficult decisions. This idea of conviction and faith, the cost of inaction, strategic choices, and then the next steps. Uber practical. Okay, separating decision from strategy. So a great man, he's a mentor of mine. I think very strongly of him. He's an incredible business person, a personal mentor as well. He once told me, to not decide is to decide. And I heard that out of his mouth tons of times. And I was kind of like, okay, so if there's a decision that you need to make, what does that mean? That you choose not to make a decision, that's a decision? Yes, exactly, is what he would say. Or if you're not constantly making decisions and you're not deciding, okay, that makes sense. But I always thought of this as, why is he saying this? What's going on? Well, it's usually permeating around a timeline. So if it's not like a now is not the time kind of, if the conversation is now is not the time, or I know I should, but like now is not the time, essentially what he would say is, got it, so you're not going to make the decision right now. And so that was a decision. That really put a stone in my shoe, and it changed the way that I thought about business and life forever. That was a moment I learned that there was a difference between a decision and a strategy. So I told him that, it's not good timing to make a call right now. I can wait and I can just see things out. And he said to me, and he's a very strong individual, he said, so you've made a decision to not follow through then. That's what you've decided. It's like, geez, dude, back off. Isn't there a wisdom in waiting? Of course there is. But if you don't decide on something, I guess this is the next point. If you don't decide on something, a strategy will present itself and it'll make the decision for you. Okay? So from this point forward, it's absolutely crucial that you understand the difference between making a difficult decision and pursuing a strategic choice. Most decisions are actually not decisions. They're just choices that are implemented to some strategy that you've come up for yourself, okay? Hard decisions, however, or should I say decisions, change the trajectory of your life and reverberate well into the future. It's about knowing what you want in life, believing you can have it, having permission, right? And giving yourself permission to get it, all right? I have decided, this is kind of what it sounds like, I have decided I'm not going to do my agency anymore. I don't know what's next, but I've decided it's time to move on and start a new chapter in my life. Now, I hear this a lot. A caveat to this. I understand the pain of saying something like this. I've decided I'm not going to do it anymore. There's always a but that follows it, which is, but I don't know how I'm going to do that. Right? Or there's a confusion around, well, I'm not going to decide to shut down the agency because I don't know what's next, so therefore I'm going to keep doing it. A decision is an internal conviction. It's a decision that you've told yourself, okay? It's that's it, I have made the decision, I'm not doing this anymore. The next day, it's okay to fire up your laptop and run your agency, but you've made the decision not to. So the next day, you are now in strategy category, right? Not decision category. Okay? I don't know what I'm deciding to do instead of this, but I have decided I am not going to do this anymore. It's an internal conviction thing, okay? A strategic choice is how you will act upon or follow through with your difficult decision. Okay, so we're putting things into proper categories. You can basically make the case that all of the decisions you're making now were based off of one decision that you made 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 6 months ago, whatever it may be. Okay? And these difficult decisions, I would argue, if you can insert those into your life often, then you will move forward with elegance and grace, and with perfect elegance and grace, as well as flexibility, because you're just so used to making these difficult decisions. Okay, so that's the strategic choice follows the hard decision, and this sounds like, now that I've decided to shut down my agency, I'm going to work on the exit strategy and figure out a timeline for my next offer. Right? So now you can work through the options of the strategy. It's not so much, I've decided to do this other thing. No. I've decided that right now the buck stops here. Tomorrow, the strategy is now implemented, okay? So if you're unable to distinguish between decision making and strategy, you will experience many poor outcomes. The decisions in your life are made for you, if that's the case, instead of you making the decisions. The decisions in life are made for you based on what the present circumstance is forcing you to do, okay? This is called being a victim of circumstance. I'm not commenting on legitimate things that happen to you and being a true victim of something difficult. Obviously, we are free agents, of course, but obviously life does happen to us and we need to react. I am not going to comment on that. What I'm saying is, as much as you can control the decisions you make, we're going to be speaking in that sort of tone, okay? So now I can sort of freely say this is being a victim of circumstance, in that decisions are often made for you if you don't know the difference between decision making and strategy, okay? So this is waiting for the worst thing to occur and letting it decide for you because it happened to you, okay? This is not the way that you want to go about running your life or business. Well, I've been thinking about leaving this church for a while, but now that this bad thing really happened, now I have to leave. That's like maybe a personal example, or more of a one closer to home with business. We were just this is more personal. We're getting priced out of the housing market, so we just had to leave. So basically, the market made the decision for you. This bad circumstance made the decision for you. Both of these things, though, I can say that you can usually, if you know how to make decisions, see the tidal wave coming and make the decision before it happens, okay? Here's one more close to home. I had to shut down my business because my ad cost just got too high. So, okay, got it. So the decision to shut down the business was based off of something that happened to you, as opposed to, I can see that ad costs are going so high and I'm going to choose to shut this down now, or something like that, right? In other words, the hard decisions that you make in life and business, just boom, buck stops here, this, and this, generally speaking, usually come from things happening to you, so the decision's made for you. It's not a proactive way to move forward, okay? So you are more likely to spend time evaluating the minutia of every possible strategy and deciding on the one you like the most, if this is how you operate. This means that every strategic choice you make in your business feels like a big one, because you can only make decisions based on the strategies you've been evaluating. Okay, what does this mean? I've been looking into starting a free group and what kind of challenge I can do, but I also heard that I should, grow a YouTube channel, and I was thinking I should, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is the kind of place where people who don't make decisions hang out. There's no strategy. All of those things, first of all, are strategies, but it's not rooted into a decision that you've made. It's not optimized for the goal, and more importantly, again, the decision that you have made that you can root it back into. Okay. You actually see this in people with a little bit more life experience. When you really get down to the conversations they're having strategically, they're loose about it, because they'll often say, it's just a decision that I made 15 years ago that I would never do this, and I do this and this. You can usually root some of these strategic decisions or strategic choices back to a decision that you make, right? Okay, when you're able to separate these two things, decision making and strategy, you experience much better outcomes. So what does this look like? Making a decision based off of internal alignment opens you up to all kinds of new options and pathways that were previously inaccessible, okay? In other words, once you ignore the minutia of the strategy, okay, and live in the sort of busyness, hustle and bustle of reacting to things that are happening and decisions being made for you, essentially, or reacting to things and thinking that you're making decisions. Once you move out of that and just make internal decisions, right? That is separate from your day-to-day, right? I have decided to do this thing, right? And it often happens, when you're so far removed and you really get to think about it. Once you do that, then what ends up happening is all kinds of strategies and pathways of how to move forward just blossom. You don't actually have to work in the minutia of all these decisions that you really shouldn't be doing anyways, okay? Once you do this, you're more neutral in evaluating the usefulness of a particular strategy because it's no longer tied to a difficult decision with a bunch of emotions, okay? In other words, every single sort of strategy or decision, like I'm going to shut this campaign down or start this, or I'm going to film a new thing, blah, blah, you're just neutral when you're evaluating because it's not this big old thing. It's attached to a bigger decision, okay? You can say, okay, this is a strategy. I can be flexible on this. You're able to say, I'm sensing an issue is developing here. Either I will decide how to handle this or it will decide for me, okay? This is making a decision, right? Is the tidal waves coming? I can see it coming. I'm going to decide right now to make this decision, okay? So from now on, you must understand, first and foremost, before I move forward at all, there is a clear distinction between the decisions you make and the strategies that you implement. Do not be confused for strategies for decisions. That's really not it, okay? Okay, now that we know there's a difference, let's move into the decisions and how to make these hard decisions, okay? And what do they actually look like and how do you navigate them? Making hard decisions. A hard decision is the type of decision that changes your life's trajectory. Every decision worth deciding upon should be a difficult one that carries a lot of weight for how your life will unfold. In other words, if it doesn't fit in this category, it's not a decision, it's a strategy, okay? In this sort of example. Like I said, I have decided to get a refill is not a decision, nor is it hard. It's like Michael Scott in The Office. I declare bankruptcy. You can't just say it, right? That's a bad analogy, but yeah, I've decided to get a refill is not a strategy. It's not difficult. It's not going to change your life, right? These decisions, the hard ones, they usually feel big, okay? In other words, it's like weight off my shoulders. Wow, it just feels good just saying that, it just, wow, that's, just being able to say that is just so freeing. It's those moments, right? They feel big, okay? But you don't experience how powerful that moment in time is unless you experience the outcome of that decision. In other words, it's like a bullet just went through you and and then it takes a year to see where that decision leads you. That's how these things feel. Ultimately, hard decisions will always go back to this. What do you actually want? Okay? I can't tell you how many times I've prompted people with that question, and it's like the first time they actually think about it. Again, it's because the decisions they make are in the minutia of strategic decisions or strategic choices, not actually decisions around their life. Taking hold of your life, what do you actually want, right? It's one of the best, most essential questions you can ask anybody at any time of making a decision, right? What do you actually want, right? This is maybe an embarrassing story, but I'm actually pretty proud of it. I spent, I want to say, upwards of 30-something grand to have somebody that I really trust ask me, what do you actually want? And then give him the answer, and then him say, go do that. And it's all I needed, right? And ultimately, like, knowing that that's the case and that happens in the real world, you can make that decision for yourself. You don't need to wait for somebody to give you permission to feel those things, right? So when you get when you get clear on this and commit to it, that is this decision, then any strategic choices are informed by the big picture decision that you've already made, okay? Again, this is an internal decision that you make, not a strategic, outworking of it yet. This makes it much easier for you to pivot on the strategy if necessary because you're clear on what you ultimately want. Again, it's grounded in a decision. Hard decisions are a fact of life in business, so you must be prepared to make them, okay? I can't tell you how many times I've seen like hard decisions being made and wrestling through it. It's really rewarding to see. But the longer that you put off truly evaluating what you want, deciding how to proceed, the more likely it is that your business will start making decisions on your behalf. Decisions will be made for you. This leads to overpacked work weeks, scattered focus, juggling way too many plates, etc. We all know what this feels like. So if you are feeling these things, it's probably because there's a decision you need to make that you haven't made, or you're operating in strategy and you haven't gone back to what do I actually want and cut everything and just focus on that. Actually giving yourself permission to make that decision, right? Now, this goes deeper. This isn't just a head thing. It just lives in your brain. This is a like convictional thing, right? So it moves into your being, your will. So let's talk a bit about conviction and faith, okay? Hard decisions are hard because they always require a great deal of conviction. Conviction is not something that you apply like butter on toast. It's infused inside. It comes out of you, right? It moves with your will, and you need to see it. The shoe needs to drop. The scales again over your eyes are removed. It's, damn it, I'm doing this. It's conviction, right? You can see it in people's eyes when you notice it. You don't know what's on the other end of your decision, right? This is somebody with conviction, but you've decided to stop doing what you're currently doing and do something else. Let me highlight something here in terms of this whole big decision making thing. Usually, decisions are centered around obviously one of two things. I've decided to stop doing this, or I've decided to do this. Okay? These decisions, okay, I've decided to stop doing this and decided to start doing this, can be made independently of one another. If you don't know the future of I'm going to start doing this, that's fine. But a valid decision around conviction can be centered around I have decided to stop doing this and I don't know what I'm going to do afterwards. That's what I'm talking about, a decision around conviction and faith, okay? You don't need to wait to decide to do something else in order to stop what you're doing. You can make the decision right now to stop what you're doing, and that's a decision that you make. It takes conviction and faith to know that was the right decision. I don't know what's next, okay? The other way of thinking about this is I've decided to do that. Fine, if you've made that decision, then you need to stop doing what you're doing now, which means the decision of stopping doing what you are already doing now has been made, essentially, okay? So you don't know what's on the other end of the decision, but you've decided to stop doing what you're currently doing and do something else, even though that something else is unknown, okay? Even though you have no idea what tomorrow will look like. You must be willing to trust that decision you made will be honored and that the right strategy will now present itself, okay? It's easy to wait to make a decision until it makes sense or unless, what I will do next presents itself and you think you have an idea of how it will play out once you're on the other side. That's an easy decision to make. However, it's actually making this decision that energetically aligns to you, and that's the strategies that come from that place are powerful. When you energetically align with a decision, the strategy presents itself and it just attaches itself to that decision, right? So once you've made an internally aligned decision, which again, all decisions are just internal alignment, right? The emotional burden is relieved and you feel free. Now you can evaluate the strategy, as opposed to I need to go looking for a strategy to feel good about this hard decision. Once I feel good about it, then I will make the decision. That's absolutely the wrong way to move. You'll spend months, weeks, sometimes years, wasted time. Okay? You can proceed with a hard decision when it's based on conviction and not fear. Okay? 2, you are aware of what you are saying, what you will be saying no to. Okay? And 3, you still feel good about it, right? That's a hard decision. I have conviction around this. Okay, you've made that decision. Do you understand what you're saying no to? And you stack the list of things you're saying no to. Okay? I'm saying no to all of these good things. These are usually good things. Usually good things. Okay, I know I'm saying no to this, no, I'm saying no to this. Okay, I know I'm saying, okay, after I'm saying no to all of these great things that I've decided not to do, I still feel good about it. That's a decision right there. Now, this first one, when you lack conviction, you get trapped in a circular problem. And this is what it sounds like. This is just an example, right? Do you want to get rid of your agency? I would, but I don't know what's next. I need to know more. But you can't make a decision right now without knowing what's next. Well, I'm not going to make a decision if I don't know what's next. That's the circular thing. The reason why is a lack of conviction. That's what it is. Based out of fear, right? And usually I will find ways to find the conviction. I will spend tons of time just with the person I'm helping, find the conviction, because going around in circles here and then trying to find strategies and having a little bit more know-how about what are the practical next steps, that'll take months, years, et cetera, and what you're doing is you're looking for a strategy to solve the convictional problem, which never goes well, right? Unfortunately, the problem of what comes next only presents itself after you've made the decision. That's the reality, okay? What to do next if you've decided to stop doing something and you don't know what the next thing is, that won't come unless you've made that decision, right? Okay? Otherwise, you're going to be waiting for that decision to be made for you, okay? Decisions are made, strategies present themselves after the decision is made, okay? And religious people, and you don't have to be religious to understand this, by the way. Religious people see this as like faith, okay? So not knowing what's on the other side of the decision, but having the faith to make a decision, chart a new path, and trust that the strategy will prevent itself. And that's not like a deeply religious concept necessarily. It's just, I think the conversation around religion is just who or what do you have faith in, right? And I'm not making a point of that at all. It's just, this is a common theme that we all see, right? Is this idea of faith is actually an action, right? It's, I have the faith to make this decision, and therefore I'm gonna get on the plane. I'm doing it. I don't know the pilot. I don't know if everything's gonna go well, but I have enough in the tank to know ultimately I'm gonna get on the plane. That's how I'm gonna show that I've made this decision, right? The world changes. I'm telling you from conviction here. The world changes when you become a person who has conviction. You can make, and when you do this, you can make clear decisions and believe you can accomplish whatever is put in front of you. And you know what this looks like when you see it in others, right? This is just a way to sort of perpetuate this idea. Once you've made the decision internally, you should voice it regularly, okay? You should regularly voice it aloud. It's just putting it out there, It's, what are you doing about this? Well, I've actually made the decision to shut it down. Whoa, so what are you going to do and how are you going to... I don't know, but I've made that decision. Okay, well, what are you going to do tomorrow? I'm still going to keep running it, but I've made the decision to shut it down, and I'm going to figure it out. That's a journal entry right there. I've made the decision, and once you do that, you regularly voice it aloud. Okay, this will help at the very least reinforce your conviction during the uncertain period. Okay, that comes immediately after, because once you make the decision and you don't know, that's a tough place to be, right? But if you make the decision and then say I've made the decision, what it'll do is that uncertainty period of hearing the feedback of other people, speak into that decision you made, often you will find the strategy. But if you go out into the world and say, I'm thinking about doing this and I haven't quite decided and I don't know what's next, what do you think? Energetically, it won't align. But if you've made the decision and then you tell somebody that you've made the decision, then it's just a matter of when, like what's going to happen. You can say, I don't know, but I've made the decision. Now new strategies will come up based off of your interactions with people, okay? It also just frankly helps you recalibrate the strategies that you can now attract, right? You've put it out into the world, the strategies then present itself. And if word becomes flesh, right? If you don't say it, then it won't happen. You have to say it. I've made the decision to stop doing this, or I've made the decision to do this, okay? Now, what's the cost of not doing all this? The cost of inaction. Incredibly expensive in terms of time, money, and energy. If you put off making a hard decision for too long, an outside circumstance or strategy will make the decision for you, okay? That's just the fact, right? Most business owners put off making hard decisions until their business starts making the calls. This traps them in a cycle of reacting, chasing, and scrambling. Like it or not, your macro environment, things completely outside of the business even, will dictate things that happen in your life. It's just a fact, right? So that's why it's important to keep your eyes up and look at the macro environment, think futuristically, and start to look for the coming tidal waves that are approaching, okay? We can't just make a decision in our little, snow globe, We don't live in that. The macro environment is happening to us, and we constantly need to look up and go, I can't just keep reacting to my business, needs, and I'm just living in that space. There's a tidal wave coming in the macro environment. Keep your head up and look out for it and make decisions before it happens to you, right? It's naive to think and assume that your world is going to stay the same forever, right? As it swirls with tidal waves and opportunities, you must be able to make hard decisions for yourself and for your loved ones, right? You can't just, again, put your head down, live in your own little world, make decisions based off of the thing you created, and ignore the fact that there's tidal waves coming towards you, and every once in a while you need to look up, make decisions before that happens, right? Practically speaking, okay, the cost of inaction usually leads to things like, being unprepared and missing out on an opportunity to work with a major figure that could skyrocket your business, okay? Or accidentally building a large, complicated business centered around clients you don't like. Bad decision, right? Or no discernible difference between your personal pain and your business pain, as they have now become one thing. Your personal life and your business life, if you're in the entrepreneurial journey, they're essentially the same thing, right? Energetically, if you've got business problems, you've got personal problems, and vice versa. Again, if the cost of inaction will lead you to go, I don't know if it's a business problem, it's a personal problem, I just have pain all around. It's become one thing, right? Because the lack of internal alignment about making a decision you need to make, or making a decision around stop doing something you're doing, it'll bring you so much pain, and then it'll emanate to your business, and that business will bring you pain, and it'll be a vicious cycle, right? Remember, and this is the very good news, you are not alone, all right? You're totally not alone. By the way, if all that we're facilitating is like a difficult decision to be made, a pivotal moment in your life, that brings me the most joy on the planet, because it's the most leveraged thing to do, brings you the most happiness, it relieves the pain, it cuts right to the heart of it, and it really just frees you. And your life may not look affected by it immediately, but in 5, 10, 20 years, you can trace it back to that moment, and that just brings me absolutely the most joy. So it's totally great and totally fine and welcomed, and even a part of the culture to have this be a place of incubation where you make difficult decisions and you see what grows from that, right? Okay, let's look at now strategic choices. So we're not talking about decisions anymore. We're talking about what happens afterwards. Strategic choices are smaller decisions that feel like a project inside of your business based off of a decision based off of conviction, right? So strategy is flexible, decisions are rigid. That's like the one level one articulation about this, right? I'll say this again. Once you've made a decision, it's static, it's rigid. That's what you've decided. Strategy now becomes flexible. Now you can kind of do whatever, right? So strategy, right? Should I start a free group? Should I raise the price of my paid engagement? Should I change my VSL? These are not decisions. Most entrepreneurs misinterpret these things, these strategic choices, for hard decisions, but they really aren't. They make a decision by looking at models and strategies for their problem, consume and evaluate all the different options, get choice analysis paralysis, right, for a bit, and then choose a strategy that makes the most sense. This is like the plague. Avoid this at all costs, okay? Do not live in this world, okay? What happens is this causes every strategic choice, like this, and all this, to feel like a massive change, because any pivot you need to make feels like an entirely new decision. The truth is that you just haven't made a hard decision based on what you actually want to do. But when you've made your hard decision, the difficult one, the problems and pivots no longer feel like massive changes that revamp your entire business. You see? So strategic choices should always be evaluated through the lens of the hard decision that you've made about ultimately what you want. And again, it goes back to what you want. Always come back to it. What do I actually want? What do I actually want? What do I actually want? Hard decision, right? Strategic choices, does it align with my core values and who I am and what I ultimately want, right? It's much easier to determine how to execute on these choices when you've already decided whether you want your life to be optimized, again, profit, time, or enjoyment. We already discussed this, right? So much easier to make a choice based off of this, right? Again, these are coming from calls, y'all. Hundreds of hours of calls, analyzing it and really digging down deep to what's actually going on here. This is supposed to alleviate and solve a lot of these things about how you think through it, right? So again, with the hard decision you made, your goal may be to maybe get off Q&A calls, fill your calendar, make more profit, whatever, right? Ultimately, though, strategic choices are never what stops you on your entrepreneurial journey. It always goes back to evaluating what you want in life and business, making a hard decision backed by conviction, and having faith that whatever comes is meant to happen, okay? So get the big decisions right. Just get those right. Like, let's just talk about that stuff. What's the big decision? I want to look for, I have an axe, right? And your big tree trunk. I want to cut this thing down in like 3 cuts. I am not interested in carving it out, right? Let's get the big decisions right. And the smaller strategic choices are details. Those are much easier to handle and pivot along the way because it doesn't feel like you're being tossed to and fro. You can just be super, super flexible with strategies at that point once the decision's made. Okay, next step, self-evaluation, right? And this might come, at a really good time for you. Do you have a hard decision that you've been putting off? And by decision, I mean something you need to stop doing, right? Do you have a hard decision that you've been putting off that you need to stop doing? Or do you have something that you need to do, which means that you need to stop doing the other thing, right? This will also pay dividends with how you show up on your sales calls and coach your clients. Again, an added benefit for helping work through this is if you change internally, guess what? Your community members, your clients, the people working with you, they will also benefit from your internal change. You can help them think through this as well, which means you can increase your prices, enjoy your engagement better, help more lives, et cetera, et cetera. It's a huge ripple effect, right? Think about the change in the world that you will make once you make this internal alignment. As you work on your business, get a sense of whether your current problem is a strategic choice or the result of not having made a hard decision, right? Which one is it? Okay. So that's it for me. This is how to think and how to make decisions and really link that up to how to navigate your life and business, right?